today we are going to be talking about 5 ways NLP will help in my relationship. So I'm super excited this week because we are live with our free Change Your Mind, Change Your Life training series. We've had thousands of women sign up for that. So I'm super excited for you to check that out. And today, right now, I'm talking about 5 ways NLP will help in relationships. So as always, I'm Rebecca Lockwood, your neuro-linguistic programming trainer, hypnosis trainer, and breakthrough coach trainer. And I've got my notes in front of me here to make sure that I give you some good juice and make sure that I don't go off on too much of a tangent. What I may also use is this here, which is our NLP training manual, which is full of amazing resources. So I may use that as well. So welcome for those of you who are joining us. I'm so excited for this week and to share with you 5 ways NLP will help in my relationship. So let's dive in. So as I said, I'm going to be using the manual, and I'm also going to be talking about some of the content that we train in our NLP practitioner course. Now, if you want to find out more about the full NLP and breakthrough coaching course, you can check it out in the link above or in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast, because this also goes onto the podcast too. So number 1, the presuppositions of NLP. Now, there's one of these that I've pulled out. Now, the presuppositions of NLP basically are the mindsets of NLP, and it's basically the assumptions and the beliefs that when we learn NLP and use NLP in our lives, in our business, in our coaching, it's the assumptions and beliefs that we have around NLP. And there are a number of these, but I've just pulled one of them to have a chat with you about how this mindset and how having this mindset can really support you in a relationship. So the presupposition is respect for the other person's model of the world. Respect for the other person's model of the world. Now, what does this mean? What does model of the world mean to start with? Now, within NLP, we talk about each individual having a different model of the world. We all grow up, we have different beliefs, we have different values, and I talk a lot about this in the Change Your Mind, Change Your Life training series. So I'm just going to dip into it a little bit so that this makes sense. So within NLP, we talk about having a model of the world. Now, our model of the world is built up upon how we live, our parents, our siblings, the things we watch on TV, everything, right? And our model of the world is formed and begins to form usually when we're in our imprint periods between the ages of 0 to 7. Now, when we're in this phase of our lives, in the ages of 0 to 7, in the imprint period, we're like a sponge, right? We soak up everything around us. We soak up the beliefs of our parents, of our teachers, of our caregivers, of our siblings, of what we watch on TV. And this is really where our model of the world is formed. We also pick up on decisions that we make and decisions that we see other people make. And this really creates our view of the world. Now, because of this, we all have a different experience of the world and a different model of the world. And by understanding that we each all have a different model of the world, we can understand and respect that other people also have a different view of the world and a different model of their world. So this really helps in relationships, because not only in relationships with maybe our clients or our partners or our teachers or whoever, people we work with, and the list goes on. This really helps us understand that everybody sees things differently and everybody experiences things differently. And so when we act in certain ways, it's based on our model of the world. And by respecting that each individual has a different model of the world, we can respect and understand that different people are going to have different beliefs, are going to have different assumptions, are going to have different behaviors, are going to like different things, enjoy doing different things, not enjoy doing different things, right? And so this really helps to understand, like, okay, well, they view something different to me. They have a different opinion to me. And that's okay, because we respect that. Okay, so number 1 was understanding the presupposition of NLP respect for the other person's model of the world. And just so you know, if you're joining me now, I'm referring to my notes, so if you see me looking down, that's why, just to make sure we don't go off on a tangent. So number 2, within our NLP training, we talk about preferred representational systems. Now, what this means is that each individual has a different way of communicating, a different way that they prefer to be communicated to, but also a different way we like to learn, a different way we like to communicate with others. And these can be in the method of visual, in sound, in kinesthetics, the way that we feel. And so some people prefer to see things, other people prefer to hear things, other people prefer to feel things, and some people prefer to have like order and sequence, like a process driven. Now, by understanding people's preferred representational systems, we can then really understand how to communicate with people in the way that they prefer to be communicated to. This also really helps with ourselves as well, because when we understand this about ourselves, we can really understand how to motivate ourselves, how to push ourselves forward, how to be kind to ourselves, and how to communicate with ourselves to get the results that we want in our lives, in our business, in our relationships, and with ourselves. It really helps us, you see people say, don't you, like, always be kind to yourself, be kind to yourself. And this really helps you be kind to yourself in a way that you prefer to be communicated to. So it's super powerful. So number 2 was about understanding preferred representational systems. So do you and other people, do you prefer to be communicated to in a visual way, in sound, with feelings? Like how do you prefer? And also when you understand that, within our NLP course, we teach you how to use specific words and phrases that really tie in with the preferred method of communication so that you can really communicate with people really effectively. Things like having conversations with your children. Like when you understand people's preferred method of communication, you can discuss things with them and speak with them in the way that the communication lands with people really well. Okay, so number 3. In our NLP training, we also talk about empowerment and about taking personal responsibility. And we also talk about something called cause and effect. Now, cause and effect, and the concept around this is that we can either be a cause for our lives, in our lives, or we can be an effect of other people in our lives. And this is really, really helpful for in relationships as well, because when we understand that someone else doesn't make me feel a certain way, it's down to me to feel a certain way and communicate effectively with that person so that they understand how I like to feel. You understand and we understand that we are at cause. Now, another example of this is, or even to dive deeper into that example, is if, for example, you're in a relationship and you're maybe not happy, right? Maybe you're not happy in that relationship and you put blame on them. So it's their fault I'm not happy because they're doing this. Now, the chances are that they have no idea that you're experiencing that if you don't communicate to them effectively, right? So we can be a cause for our feelings and the way that we feel and the way that we show up, and we can be a cause for communicating that to our partners as well. So another way to think about this, which is kind of a side note, but also completely relevant when it comes to cause and effect, is we all have different strategies that we run in terms of the way that we feel loved, how we feel wanted. And this also ties into the preferred representation. Now I'm going a bit deep here, so follow on with me. And if you've got any questions, please do ask them. If, for example, you know that you're very visual and you're a visual person, and you know that for you to feel loved, you have to see that you feel loved. So for example, your partner buying you a bunch of flowers and giving you a gift. You're seeing the gift and that makes you feel loved, right? So when you understand that about yourself, which is what I teach you within our NLP training, when you understand that about yourself, you can communicate that to your partner. So you can be a cause in your relationship. You can communicate that to your partner so that they know that that's going to support you to feel loved. Something as simple as buying a bunch of flowers and bringing them home to you, okay, can make such a powerful difference. And even buying yourself a bunch of flowers to make yourself feel good can make such a difference. Okay, so number 3 was about empowerment and cause and effect. So number 4, building rapport. Building rapport. Within our NLP training, I teach you how to build rapport with individuals, with your clients, with your partners, with your children. And what rapport is really being in sort of like a dance with somebody, right? Like an unconscious dance. Sounds a bit cheesy, and it is a bit cheesy really when you think about it. But for example, if you are in rapport with somebody, you are like them, right? So you've got things in common, whether that's like actual things, for example, you like the same things, or whether it's that you are moving in the same way. So for example, if you start having a coffee with someone and they take a drink of their coffee, you take a drink of your coffee as well. And this all happens unconsciously when you're in rapport with somebody. And it's like they're saying, like, you like people who are like you, okay? And when we train in our NLP training, we teach you how to understand how to build rapport with people and why it's so important as well. Why it's so important to really build rapport with people, to build connections and relationships with them at the unconscious level, but also consciously as well. So number 4 was about building rapport. So, and last final, number 5 is about communication. So we've spoken kind of throughout this about communication, how to effectively communicate with people in relationships and with yourself. But also, when it comes to communication, really understanding and knowing that you are not mind reading what people are saying with their communication, and actually taking the words from the sentences that they are using. Now, to give you an example of this, and this has been so powerful in my relationship with my partner and with my husband. And so, for example, he'd get home from work and he'd been working, like, I know he doesn't mind me sharing this, but he'd get home from work and he'd been up since 4 o'clock in the morning. He'd get home from work and he'd been knackered, right? And he'd walk through the door and I'd be like, "Hi babe, how you doing?" And he'd put his bag down or whatever and he'd go, yeah, I'm all right. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, like, he's not smiling at me. Is he unhappy? Like, do I look ugly today? Is there something wrong with me? And I would completely and utterly get up in my own head and I'd be like, oh my God, what have I done wrong? Have I done something to upset him? What can I do to make this better? And I'd get in this tizzy and feel overwhelmed about him not seeming to be happy, right? Now, if you think about this, what did he say? He said, yes, I'm all right, babe. So why did I start to make up this story in my head about some stuff which he didn't actually say? Okay? So really understanding how to communicate with people and take the words that they've used in their sentence rather than making something up in your head and giving your own meaning to the sentence. Okay, because what I made up in my head isn't actually what was said, right? So we call this, in our NLP training, we call this about whether you're mind reading or whether you're mind reading, God, it's gone out of my head now, whether you're presupposing or whether you're mind reading. Now, what that means is that, is it in the sentence? Like, is it said in the sentence? And in our NLP training, we use the example about a cat. A cat sat outside in the sun, lying in the sun. And the example that we use is the cat is lazy. Okay, so are we mind reading that or can that be presupposed? Now, the cat is lying in the sun, but does that mean he's lazy? No, it doesn't. It's a mind read, right? So it's stuff that is so simple, but that is super powerful, that when you understand it and you apply it in your own life, in your relationships and in your work, it makes such a difference. So number 5 was about communicating effectively and understanding what's actually in the sentence rather than mind reading what's in the sentence. Okay, so to wrap it all up then, we were talking about the 5 ways NLP will help you in your relationships. Number 1 was about having respect for the other person's model of the world and understanding that everybody has a different model of the world and that's okay. Number 2 was about understanding each individual's and your own preferred representational system. So how do you prefer to be communicated to? Are you visual? Do you like to see things? Do you like to hear things? Do you like to feel things? Or do you like to go through an order and sequence of things? Number 3 was about empowerment and being at cause rather than at effect of things in your life. Number 4 was about building rapport and being like the saying, people like people who are like people, or people who like people who are like them. And number 5 was about really understanding what is actually said in the sentence and communicating effectively rather than making stuff up and mind reading in your own head. So I hope that was helpful. Hello. It's been so amazing to catch up with you all. As always, I'm Rebecca Lockwood, your neuro-linguistic programming trainer, hypnosis trainer, and breakthrough coach trainer. The details of our NLP and breakthrough coach program are in the link above or in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. If you need anything at all from me, do feel free to pop us an email back to our weekly emails and the training series emails, and I'll catch you at some point. I'll be live again on Wednesday even. I'll be live again on Wednesday. So have an amazing day, and I'll catch up with you soon.